We'll say we appreciate the number that we see in the house today, and not because it's me standing there. Just thankful for the Lord and what He's able to do in their lives. And I've prayed, I've thought many different things. Stephen's asked me to come, and I already said in that we had to postpone this thing for just a little bit, but still we're where we're at. We're just thankful to be here this morning, and I don't feel like I'm going to be very, very long at all, and I'll be honest with that, and I just want to be able to, I don't know if I'm going to be able to say or do anything this morning except cry. You ever long for something, and long for something, and long for something, and wonder if it ever happened, and worried, and fretted, and that within the flesh this morning. And I'm being honest this morning, Brother Earl. I'm just a man just like you are. Got worries just like you do. But also sometimes, Brother Thomas, Brother Tyler, we forget that even though we're flesh, there's also the spiritual side of me, that when this old man gets weak, and that today, that there's something down on the inside of my heart this morning in that, Brother Steve, that it continues to churn and grow stronger and yearns this morning. But that ain't what I know. This might not be a baptizing message. I don't know. I've never done one here like this. I never have. I've always been around the creek side of the bank, but that's beside the point. But what my point was is, this morning, just wondering and worried if it was. And when the Lord starts dealing with you and letting you know some things and letting you see your children and see your children begin to change and their countenance begins to change. And in that this morning, I want you to understand this morning. I don't know how to go in and out. I really don't. I just want you to understand that I want you to understand the importance of what's about to happen and what has already happened in that today, that I can't help this morning but to rejoice in what I've seen and what God has done. And you say, well, it's your granddaughter. It might be my granddaughter. But this day, it was Sophie's turn and I didn't. And that maybe get to be there, but that ain't what I want to get to this morning is, but there's a reason for us to go on this morning, the next step, and that with the Lord this morning. Have you ever thought about that this morning, the next step, and that with the Lord? And you say, well, I've been saved a long time. This morning, I don't know where that, I just don't have to follow the Lord. Let me testify for just a minute, brother. I'm just going to be honest with you this morning, but there's something in our lives today, folks, that there's a reason this morning to go on just a little further. There's a reason in that, Brother Jimmy, to take the next step, and that is the Lord today, that we might be able to be the light and the understanding and the help to those, Brother Tracy, that stand in need today, this morning. Now, I know this is a baptizing this morning, but I'm going to be honest with you. I want us to understand and slow down some things this morning to realize this morning what in that responsibility that me and you have as born-again believers this morning. You say, well, Brother Chris, this morning, you say, well, what is that? Can I tell you something? Is our lives this morning, is it being able to light to those? Are we admonishing those? And then are we supporting those? Are we teaching those that's coming behind us this morning the things that God has done for us today? This day. Today you pray. today. I don't know if I've already said. I don't know who's here and who's not. But I saw those coming in. But I want to read you just a little bit of the scriptures this morning if I can. And can I tell you something? I'm thankful for my family that's here this morning, for my friends, and for my church that I'm trying in that to pastor this morning. And I'm thankful for my home church too. I don't want to leave nobody out this morning. But can I tell you something? Stephen was talking about a little in that Henley over there, and talking about how Sophie this morning, when she got born again, how she turned and began to pray. But I want to tell you something for those that don't know. Today, I'm trying to get there. You pray for a minute. I can't help it. It's just the way I am. But I begin to think about why before I come this way. I'm going to tell you something. When the Lord reveals things to you and lets you know that your children's in trouble, and lets you know your grandchildren's in trouble, or even your friends are in trouble, today that becomes a concern of mine, Brother Abraham, and that Brother Brock this morning. But I begin to wonder, and I pondered in that Landon today on how long it would be, or how long it would be before Henry, and that would give it up and let the Lord be able to take care of her. Today, if you say, boy, I had it painted, I'm just going to testify for a minute. I had it painted in my mind. We'd be sitting either New Hope over there, in that down there, Brother Morris, or Brother Jim, we'd be sitting in New Hope, and she'd get out of the aisle. I said, Chris, you shouldn't think about that. I did, I'm just being honest. But you know what happened? I wasn't even here at the church house today. You know what? I still got the text, Brother Landon. Landon told me in a text over there when I got out of the service. I got out of the church house that night. Today said Henry's in the altar. Today, what you going to do? I thought to myself, what am I going to do? Today, you know what happened? I began to think about and understand this morning that I was going to depend on the one this morning that I depended on and I trusted her with even before time today. You pray for a minute. I'm trying to lay a little groundwork this morning today. So you listen about what I'm going to read today. I'm not here to charge Henley. This morning I'm not even here to tell her story. But I want you to understand this morning, church, that we as his people today have a responsibility. I looked as I watched. I even carried a little LJ in with me this morning. Today little Ellis is back there. And I've got Aniston back there this morning, and that makes up 4 of mine. But then I begin to look around and understand. I watch the other ones as they come up. A little Eddie and then today begin to come in the church house, and I seen this morning the other one this morning coming in, carrying them in the little carriers this morning. Can I tell you something, church? We've got a responsibility today to be able to understand this morning that the light that we have in our heart shouldn't be put on our bosom, but it should be set upon a candlestick in our lives, that we might be able to be glorious and be able to shine out in the world we live today, that they might be able to find the same salvation that I found, and they might be able to obtain it today. This morning,
You say you're a little excited. I'm going to tell you something. When I start thinking about what I got, and this morning, it ain't just cause what I got, it's but what you can have. This morning you pray. This morning, but it said, it was over here, and this is a strange. In the 6th verse of the 1st chapter of Deuteronomy, I want you to get out of this, and I'll sit down in just a minute. It said, I began reading in Deuteronomy. It said, the Lord our God spake unto us in Horeb, saying, yet we've dwelt long enough in this mount. It said, turn you, take your journey, and go to the mount of Ararat. And it said, unto them, unto all places high, nigh thereunto, in the plain, in the hills, and in the vale, and in the south, in the seaside. Now listen, to the land of the Canaanites, and unto the Lebanon. He said, the great river, Euphrates. Now listen, he said, behold, I have set a land before you. Go in and possess the land. And the Lord sware unto the fathers of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give unto them, and to their seed after them. Now listen, and I spake unto you at that time, saying that I am not able to bear you myself alone. He said, the Lord your God hath multiplied you, and behold, ye are this day as the stars of the heaven of multitude. Now listen, and the Lord your God, Lord God of your fathers, make you 1,000 times more, many more as ye are. Bless you. He hath promised you. How can myself bear alone the cumbrance of your burden? Now listen, that's all I'm going to read right there for just a minute this morning. But I begin to think about this morning possessing this morning about that, what it was talking about this morning. And I talked to you just when I first come in about that next step today. Have you ever this morning, I'm just going to ask us all today, what's your next step? The Bible said, he said a good man, I'm just going to paraphrase if I can, a good man's steps today are ordered in that by the Lord. This morning you say, well, what does that have to do with the baptizing? I'm going to tell you something. A lot of times, Brother Landon, I'm just going to be honest with you. We get them on the church road. We get them right here where they're at. Brother Teddy, and then when those things happen, guess what? They just kind of fizzle out. It seems like there's no addition to anything they do. We keep them around a few years today, and then they just kind of do. But what I want to challenge you with, or ask you to do, this morning, that we don't stop today, continuing in the steps of the Lord, that we continue on. Sister Henley, where you're at, this morning, that you continue on in the ways of the Lord. You've made a great step. That night you stepped out from the back, and you come up to get born again. You made the next step, and you got there where you were with the Lord. We're about to baptize you and enter you into the church today, that we might be able to be a full-fledged member of the church today, this morning. But I don't want it to stop there. I want your steps to continue in that, to go towards the Lord. That means when Sunday comes, that you come to the Sunday school house. That means when Sunday night comes, that you come to the church house. That means when Wednesday night comes, your desire is to be at the church house. This morning you say, well, Brother Chris, that's a lot. It may be, but it took a lot to get you where you're at. This morning it is going to take a lot to be able to keep you in that. And that keep you close to the Lord, because there's an angry world out there this morning that's waiting to gobble your testimony up. And if we allow it, it'll destroy it one day. I know we don't like to think about that. But David said one time, Brother Son, in that case, he said, I was one time. He said, but now I'm old. He said, but I've never seen the righteous, or his righteous begging, seed or begging bread. I can't get around that. This morning, but can I tell you something this morning? This morning, if there's any slackness, if there's anything that's anything lacking in mine and your lives, it's not the Lord's fault. It's our desires that is taking us away from the Lord. If you're staying away and your desires are not upon the things of the Lord, number one, I'm afraid your testimony is eroding out from under you today. You say, boy, that's just Henley's 9-year-old. Yes, she is. But can I tell you something? This morning, I can remember when I was just a little lad. I can remember when I was just a young man too. And it didn't take much, Brother Stephen, that when I got on up in years, that I forgot the teachings of what my grandma and my uncles and that had taught me. And I wandered myself out away from the world, out from the church. I mean, out into the world, brother. And guess what happened? The testimony thing that I had, it was diminished. And you say, boy, we got them born again. Get them saved. Yeah, I want to get them saved, but I want them to understand. Now, I want you to understand some importance of this thing. Now, here it comes. It's what's been on my. You help me. You help me this morning that I might have the same desire towards Sophie this morning as I have towards you. And I might have the same desire that I have in that toward Debbie. This morning and little Addie and all them that's coming up behind us. This morning that we might be willing to share the knowledge and spiritual knowledge. And most of all the love and compassion that we have. That when their time comes that I'll be able to be a help unto them. It ain't get them in and forget them. It's not get them in and forget them. But I'm going to say this, moms and dads, aunts and uncles, grandmas and grandpas. My mother-in-law's here. I'm going to pick on her. It's been a while since I've got to be in service. She's seen the highs of me. She's seen the very lows and the bottoms of me. But the one thing about it that she's done, she's stayed constant in my life. You say, well, that don't mean yes, it does. I'm going to ask my family here this evening. You know it better than I do. What you going to do when Nanny's not here? What you going to do? What did you do when Papa wasn't here? I'm not trying to be, I'm just being straight. I'm being honest. This is what's been on my heart. What are we going to do, Casey? What are we going to do? I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question. Do the same, I'm going to tell you something. You do the same thing that Nanny did. And Papa did. And that one did. You hold true to what God said. You hold true. Or you're going to be able to have, I'm talking about you give them everything else, but can you give them what God wants to give them today? When they don't want to go, and you know they should be in the church house, or you stoplight one day, we jump out and we're on this big long, and God just pours everything out that I thought about for myself. What step am I going to take today? Is it towards the Lord and His ways? You know it. You know this morning what's important. You know what's in your life and what's important. I love my kids. I love my grandkids. Tyler, I do. I love them all. I love you this morning, but I'm telling you what I come to find out, and I love my church this morning. But the one thing that I've come to find out is God wants God to show me way out yonder. When I forget that He's showing me what I need today, and if I'll trust in what He's given me, He'll take care of what's out yonder one day. Over in Hebrews, I think it is. How do we neglect? Is that right? I know y'all listen to me, and I'm trying to hurry. I don't want to. But how do we neglect so great the salvation that God gave me and you? You know what neglect is? You ever seen a neglected child? We feel sorry for them, don't they? They just kind of throw to the side. Just kind of haphazardly go. When you think about the Lord, when we just haphazardly neglect what He gives us, I'm talking about that He saved you with. What have you done with it since you begged not to be able in that to go to those things that God calls and that has set aside for the devil and his angels this morning? But guess what? Hell and hellfire. This morning the lake of fire is as real as heaven and joy is today. We need to quit and understand that one day your choices and our steps in that we take and that will bring great consequences. This morning, Henley, she's standing there like this. Oh, she's a 9-year-old kid. I still say, Henley, put that up. Where'd you lay it, Henley? I don't know. You just had it, Henley. I don't know. She's still just a kid. But there's something down on the inside of her now that is going to need to be nurtured and understood, and God got it in safekeeping today, and that this day. But you know what we've got to understand as adults and born again believers in that, and that we're in that way longer than she is be able to help her and prod her in the way that they'll understand when they after a while. That's our responsibility, church. I know this might not be baptizing way, but I'm here to tell you the next step. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to touch here in just a second. Philip, one time, he was down there in a place, and they were having a great revival. And the Lord come unto Philip and said, "Get ye out of here." Just like He told the children of Israel over there, this time to get out of this time to get out of this. Let's go. He said, "I want you to get off down to a desert down there called Gaza." You say, "Well, boy, he just jumped here." Let me ask you a question. You think Philip in that just thought within himself? I can tell you, the Bible says that straightway he went. He took the first step towards the desert. You say, "Well, my goodness, I had no place to go." If the Lord is challenging you, and it's ordered by the Lord, ain't no water in the desert, as far as I know, Brother Tracy. It's just a dry, desert place. That's the place. Can I tell you something? The night that I got born again, said, I left everything I knew to feel and touch and understand that night, and I had no control. And the place I was going, even though it was drawing me to that place, you know what? It looked just as desolate as me. But you know what? It's kind of like when Philip got there. He got down there and he found a little eunuch boy, didn't he? And joined himself. And I know we all know these things. Joined himself right up there to him. And he was over there reading something. I believe it was Isaiah, if I'm not mistaken. Talking about reading the scriptures. He said, you understand what thou readest. Let me tell you something right now. You might be sitting here and you don't understand one thing. You might not understand one thing about it, but God has given you something in your heart this morning that's a beacon in that today. It's like a compass today that's pointing towards the things that will lead you to water this morning. And if you're dry and if you're without understanding, that beacon this morning will draw you to a place if you'll just let God order your steps this morning and take the first step. He'll be able to help you. Amen. But guess what? Old Philip joined himself our room. I know it's preached so many times. I can't hit it before it comes through. He joined right there to him. Read to him. Come to know the Lord or whatever. Guess what? Went a little ways from him. And all of a sudden, right there, there's a little water. God's going to provide a way this morning. He'll make himself a way. Now he asked him, he said, what? He said, here, what hinders me to be baptized? They come down out of the church. How about it this morning? What I'm trying to tell you this morning, God has always made a way where there was no way. It's just left up to me and you to whether we're willing or not to take the first step. Can I tell you something? I guess many different people don't understand. We got many different religions. We got many different beliefs. We got many different things that we hold on to, and traditions of men and all these things that we do. But there's one thing about this morning that I want you to understand more than anything, that you can't hide what God placed down on the inside of your heart. Amen. I don't care if it's atheist, I don't care if it's Methodist, I don't care if it's Buddhist, I don't care what it is this morning today, that when man was made, he made the same heart, the same flesh this morning as in all men, and he instilled something into each one of us this morning, that if we're willing enough to trust it this morning when the Spirit of God draws, and if we're willing enough to take the first step, I believe that we can find salvation. That's the same way it is for all of us. He did. But that first step. Can I ask you something this morning, church? As I watch people start rolling in, and families and friends and all these things, I want you to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I'm ever indebted with you. And I love my family this morning, but I want you to understand that if I've ever hurt or ever done anything that's caused you to skip a beating away, I want to tell you this morning that I'm sorry. And you say, Chris, what I want you to understand, it don't matter what you are or what you call yourself. What comes right down to it is where a heart of a man's at, or where a woman's heart's at this morning. And what I'm telling you this morning is what I see and what I understand. It's drawing nigh, and it's drawing more nigh this morning, and it's getting harder and harder today to be able to let people understand this thing, and to get them to realize that life is not the abundance of things, but it's that we not this morning, not that we hold in our hands, but that we hold in our hearts. And unless we get willing to give it back to the one that gave us to, it'll do us no good today. something. I'm going to hush. I'll bring this. I know we got to hurry. They tried one time to get to the Tower of Babel. You know all that. And they got together and they come up and they were going to build a tower through the heavens. And we all know that over in the scriptures where that they compounded the language and all those things right there. Can I tell you something this morning? It don't matter what you're doing or what you've already done. This morning, if you don't have God, that's the foundation of it. It will if you don't do it. I'm just being honest. The first step this morning, I want you to leave here if you don't hear nothing else. What's your first step? Is it towards the Lord? Or is it towards me? Is it towards the Lord? Or is it towards this? Well, I thought you got many ways to the Lord. I'm just going to be honest with you. I ain't got one way to the Lord. I love you this morning. I feel like that's about as far, Brother Stephen, as I need to go. And I know it's maybe not. I keep saying about I don't know what I'm going to go through the Bible and look and see what a baptizing message is. I'm going to be straight with you. That's what was on my heart. But I could see Henry and I could see Sophie. And I don't get to see Sophie like I get to see her here a little bit. But I'll tell you what, when you see them walk out the back door back there, if they're side by side, sometimes it's hard to pick them out, which one's which. But whichever one this morning, you say you're just concerned about them, no, I'm not. Listen to me. I want you to understand this morning that we have every man that God is with me and you. And it's core to be able to help those that we're talking about this morning. So Jimmy, Sophie, and those coming on, Brother Ray. Tyler, can I tell you this? I love you. I appreciate you. I really do. Thomas, I appreciate you. And I'm just going to go down the list. But I want you to understand this morning, church and family, nannies and uncles and grannies and all these other things this morning that we have a responsibility unto them. That we help and we encourage. Because I'm going to tell you something, moms and dads, aunts and uncles, you've got a great influence over their life.